Okay, September 20th. So I am out here at one of my farms where I've got my cattle. And this is a ditch, a stretch here that was getting flooded because there's a clogged up culvert. And it's at one of my corners of my pasture. And this is like where I made a video last winter of me having to break through the ice and pull this electric fence up out of the water, because you get that much water on this much wire, it draws all the current right out of your fence. So I've been talking to the road commission. You know, the guy came out and unclogged the culvert. He said, well, the culvert's, he's going to try to schedule, get the culvert replaced. So they came out here last week to replace the culvert. And this lady across the road who lives, this is all wetland, it's the lowest place around, and she lives in a house on a little hill in this wetland, and water goes downhill with gravity. I think everybody that went to kindergarten knows that. And this lady came out here and threatened all these guys with a lawsuit and said that she was going to call the Department of Natural Resources on them, and said they had a permit because they were going to move the culvert down a little bit to a new spot. When you do that, you have to get permitted technically. This is an existing culvert that last time it was replaced was 44 years ago, but it's possible this culvert, at this intersection has been here, well over 100 years. This place was started getting settled in the 1840s, 1830s. So they tried to talk to her, calm her down, and explain to her, yeah, the water goes in this ditch, and there's a natural tributary that goes through here. There's ponds, there's springs. I mean, it's always been a wetland. And so what they did is they pulled up stakes. I thought, great, I'm going to get a culvert. Because what happens is the culvert was clogged up, and then also so much water accumulates from the big hill across the road that the culvert on the other side of the road doesn't keep up with the water. The water washes over the road and washes a whole bunch of sediment into this corner. You can see, if I go down by the corner, it's just all silt, from runoff. So they decided to pull up stakes and take off last week. I talked to the guy and he goes, well, we just went back, regrouped, made sure we did our research. She put a new driveway here in 2017, and they didn't really want it there, but they said with the understanding that this culvert would need to stay open, and there's paperwork to that effect. And I don't know what happens. She's been living here for probably 20 years. She doesn't have any water issues. She's in a wetland basically, but her house doesn't flood. Her property that she's been using doesn't flood. Because when you have a good, healthy wetland and you keep the drains open, you can live right next to a swamp and a wetland and not have flood. The problems of flooding a lot of times occurs where they've filled in drainage ditches and filled in natural wetlands, and you don't have a recharge area. Swamps like this will be holding and recharge areas, and keeping all this wetland vegetation actually holds sediment, keeps it from running off the land and going into major navigable waterways. So she's never had a problem, but I spent 2 hours talking to her on the phone to try to explain to her that no, this is the natural drain. And no matter what you do, you can put a dam or try to keep water on this side of the road, it's going to go there. And what happens is when that culvert clogs, this water doesn't stay on the side of the road, comes down here and it flows right over the road. And she was giving me this BS about she's a taxpayer, this and that. Well, yeah, I don't know. Just because you're a taxpayer doesn't mean you have all the rights to change the natural order of things. I'm a taxpayer as well, and so are a lot of people that drive down this road and don't want, a foot deep rut in the middle of the road because the water's not draining properly on a presumed established drainage system that's probably been here well over 100 years already. So I don't know, a lot of these senior citizens, they get on, I don't know if, I'm going to blame a lot of them are on these statin drugs, and they do create, it's a lot of these people, they get bad tempers when they're on those statin drugs. And bad logic and reasoning, and I just don't know. I spent 2 hours trying to talk to her, and she had no concept of the idea that you can dam or berm, do whatever you want. Water's coming this way. That's gravity. And she said, my property is not a drain for Buena Road. And I said, yeah, it is. It actually is. Just because you're a taxpayer, you don't have that right. But she uses the water to her advantage. She's got ponds on her property. They raise poultry like ducks, all sorts of waterfowl. It's not a negative, it's a positive. And she just, retired, has nothing better to do. And it's an educated person. I mean, she was an engineer for GM. This area, we got a lot of GM engineers. So I was talking to the road commission supervisor there, and I saw her coming down the driveway. And I said, okay, let you handle it. I wish I was closer enough to really see the fireworks and hear it. But it's amazing. I'll be talking sometimes to the drain commissioner. He's a member of our farm bureau. And they get complaints all the time. Somebody builds a house, they bring in a lot of fill, built it in a, plastic muck soils next to a wetland, and they're complaining about water drainage. And I said, well, that's stupid. Why are you building there, dumbass? And the drain commissioner tells me, he goes, farmers are among some of the only people that realize that. These city folks, they just build. There's no concept. There's a lot of places I would not choose a building site. I wouldn't want my basement flooded. I wouldn't want to rely on 2 sump pumps all the time running and a backup pump. And a lot of the old farmhouses in this area, I mean, every one of them, all the old farmhouses from the 1800s here are all built on hills. None of them are built down in low spots, because they understood that. And back then, I'm sure they were using the water resources to their advantage. Watering livestock comes to my mind. I mean, I've got a spring pond right over here in the corner that, waters. This is the pasture where my feeder cattle are. Basically, my yearling stocker feeder cattle are in here. And year-round watering from a spring pond. I've got a 45-acre lake on this farm. I pump water out of it to the livestock. Water's not a negative, it's a positive. They used to have that program, used to call it Reclaiming the Land, back when they filled in a lot of wetlands, back in the early 1900s, mid-1900s, you were taking back the land, and that actually has created a lot of flooding problems. So, anyways, I wished I could have got up close and got some more fireworks, because I'm sure she's there bitching up a storm, complaining like crazy. Would have been fun, but again, just because you're a taxpayer doesn't mean you have the right to alter natural drainage. If that's the case, that's like saying, hey, this creek can't flow across my property anymore because the water is coming from somewhere else. It's coming from a different location. Or that's as ridiculous as saying, hey, I'm a taxpayer, I don't want that rainwater on my property. Do something about it. There's some things that being human and coexisting in a society means that you don't have unequivocal control over everything, But it's very interesting. I'm sure a lot of farmers have issues with people doing this, trying to be stupid. I just don't want the corner of my fence flooded all the time. And not a big deal to me. If I had known, I would have just built the fence back up on the berm, not in the ditch. Not a lot of sweat off my back there. Oh, now her and her husband are here. Oh, this ought to be good. the time being, she's calmed down, but she's stupid. They should have put the culvert down the road away from her driveway. And she complains so much. And she's complaining about water down in the swamp by her driveway. It's a swamp. Well, if she wanted it drier there, she should have let them put the culvert where they wanted to put it.